The cargo ship New Frontier shook like a leaf in a storm. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his chair as sparks flew from the control panels around him. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge, and the computer's voice kept repeating the same terrible message. Engine failure. Hull breach detected. Emergency landing required. Amy, can you bring us down in one piece? Jake shouted to his pilot over the noise of grinding metal and failing systems. Amy Foster's hands moved fast across the controls. Sweat ran down her face as she fought to keep the ship steady. I'm trying, Captain, but we're coming in too fast. Everyone needs to hold on tight. In the passenger section, 39 colonists strapped themselves into their seats. They had been traveling to their new home on Kepler 442b when everything went wrong. Now they faced a crash landing on a planet that wasn't even on their maps. 12-year-old Lucy Bennett sat between her parents, holding their hands tight. Her mother, Linda, whispered that everything would be okay. Her father, Tom, told her to close her eyes and think of happy things. Lucy tried to be brave, but the ship was falling so fast that her stomach felt like it was floating. The jungle world below them looked green and wild. Thick trees covered the land as far as anyone could see. There were no cities, no roads, no signs of civilization anywhere, just endless forest under a sky that was more purple than blue. Brace for impact, Amy yelled. The ship hit the ground hard. It bounced once, twice, then slid through the trees with a sound like the world was tearing apart. Metal screamed against wood. Glass shattered. The lights went out. Then everything was quiet. Jake woke up with blood on his forehead and a terrible ringing in his ears. Smoke filled the air, and somewhere in the distance he could hear people crying. He unbuckled himself and stumbled toward the passenger area, calling out names to see who was still alive. Amy appeared beside him, limping but moving. Captain, the ship is broken beyond repair. The engines are dead, and we've lost all long-range communication. No one knows where we are. They found 37 people still alive. 2 colonists had died on impact, including both of Lucy's parents. The little girl sat in the wreckage, staring at nothing, not making a sound. Dr. Helen Ross, the ship's medical officer, checked on her but found no physical injuries. The damage to Lucy was deeper than that. Carlos Martinez, their chief engineer, climbed out from under a pile of broken equipment. I've checked all the systems, he said, wiping oil from his hands. We're not flying again, ever. This ship is now our home, whether we like it or not. The colonists worked together to clear the wreckage and set up a temporary camp near the crashed ship. Security Chief Paul Grant organized groups to gather supplies and establish a safe perimeter. They had food for maybe 2 weeks if they were careful. Water wasn't a problem since a clear stream ran nearby, but everything else was a mystery. As the sun set on their first day, strange sounds came from the forest. Deep howls echoed between the trees, followed by clicking noises that made everyone's skin crawl. The colonists huddled around small fires, trying to stay warm and feel safe. What do you think is out there? Whispered Joey Martinez, Carlos's 10-year-old son. Probably just animals, his father replied, but his voice didn't sound sure. Paul Grant had found massive claw marks on trees near their camp. The scratches were deep and high up, suggesting creatures much larger than anything from Earth. He didn't share this information with the other colonists. They were scared enough already. Dr. Lisa Park, a behavioral scientist, studied the forest during the day. She noticed that the trees were different from Earth plants with thick blue leaves and silver bark. Strange flowers glowed softly in the shadows. The air smelled of cinnamon and something else she couldn't identify. This planet has its own ecosystem, she told the others. We don't know what's safe to eat or what might want to eat us. We need to be very careful. Lucy hadn't spoken since the crash. She sat by herself, looking into the forest with empty eyes. Other colonists tried to comfort her, but she didn't respond. Dr. Ross worried that the girl was in shock and might never recover from losing her parents so suddenly. On the second night, the howls got closer. Something large moved between the trees just beyond the light of their fires. Paul and his small security team took turns standing guard, but their weapons were limited. Most of the colony ship's defenses had been damaged in the crash. We can't stay here forever, said Kevin Hayes, a merchant who had been traveling to the new colony to start a trading business. We need to explore this place and find out what we're dealing with. It's too dangerous, Paul argued. We don't know anything about the predators on this world. We should focus on defense and survival. Captain Morrison listened to both sides. As the ranking officer, the decisions fell to him now. 37 lives depended on his choices. We'll send out small scouting groups during the day, he decided. But no one goes alone, and everyone stays within shouting distance of the camp. The third day brought new challenges. Their power cells were running low, and the ship's recycling systems couldn't keep up with 37 people. They needed to find food sources soon or they would start getting sick. Amy and Carlos worked together to salvage what they could from the ship's systems. They managed to get basic life support running in 3 compartments, but it wouldn't last long. "We're living on borrowed time," Carlos told the captain privately. That evening, as the purple sun set behind the trees, Lucy Bennett finally moved. She stood up from where she had been sitting and walked to the edge of their camp. She stared into the dark forest, listening to the sounds of an alien world. "Lucy," Dr. Ross called softly, "come back to the fire. It's safer here." But Lucy didn't move. Something in the forest had caught her attention. In the shadows between the trees, she saw a pair of blue eyes watching her. They weren't human eyes, and they weren't afraid. Lucy woke up early on the 4th day. The camp was quiet except for the soft breathing of sleeping colonists and the distant sounds of the alien forest. She had barely slept since the crash, but today felt different. Today, something was calling to her. Dr. Ross had given her pills to help with the sadness, but Lucy hadn't taken them. She wanted to feel everything, even the pain. Her parents were gone, and medicine couldn't bring them back. But maybe, just maybe, there was something else in this strange world that could help her understand why she was still alive. The blue eyes from the night before had appeared in her dreams. Not scary dreams, but curious ones. Something wanted to meet her, and Lucy found herself wanting to meet it too. She slipped past the sleeping guards and walked toward the edge of their camp. The morning air was cool and smelled like flowers she had never seen before. Strange birds with 4 wings called from the treetops, their songs like nothing from Earth. Near the stream where they got water, Lucy found bushes covered with purple berries. Dr. Park had said they might be safe to eat, but no one had been brave enough to try them yet. Lucy picked a few and put them in her pocket. If she was going to explore, she should bring something that might be useful. The forest was different in the morning light. Less scary, more beautiful. Tall trees with silver bark reached up toward the purple sky, and small creatures that looked like butterflies with scales fluttered between the branches. Everything glowed softly, as if the whole world was lit from inside. Lucy followed the stream deeper into the woods. She knew she wasn't supposed to leave the camp alone, but the adults were too scared to let anyone explore properly. They spent all their time worrying about dangers instead of looking for possibilities. After walking for maybe 20 minutes, Lucy heard something moving in the bushes ahead. She stopped and listened. It wasn't the heavy footsteps of a large predator. It sounded smaller, more careful. Like something young. "Hello?" she whispered. The bushes rustled, and then the most amazing creature Lucy had ever seen stepped into the clearing. It was about the size of a large dog, but it walked on 6 legs instead of 4. Its body was covered with both fur and scales, creating patterns of silver and black that shifted in the morning light. Its head was wolf-like but longer, with ears that could move independently of each other. And its eyes were the same crystal blue she had seen in the forest the night before. The creature looked at Lucy with obvious intelligence. It tilted its head to one side, studying her the way she was studying it. Neither of them moved for a long moment. "You're just a baby, aren't you?" Lucy said softly. The creature took a step closer. Its movements were graceful despite its 6 legs, and Lucy could see that it was young. Not much more than a cub or puppy. It sniffed the air, trying to understand what this strange 2-legged creature might be. Lucy slowly reached into her pocket and pulled out one of the purple berries. She held it out on her open palm. "Are you hungry?" The creature approached cautiously. Its nose twitched as it smelled the berry. Then it looked back at Lucy's face. After a moment of consideration, it gently took the fruit from her hand with its mouth. The touch of its nose against her palm was surprisingly warm. The creature ate the berry and seemed to approve. It sat down on its haunches and looked at Lucy expectantly, the way a dog might when hoping for another treat. Lucy smiled for the first time since the crash. "I think I'll call you Blue," she said, offering another berry. "Because of your beautiful eyes." Blue ate the second berry and moved even closer. Lucy carefully reached out to touch the creature's head. Blue allowed the contact, and Lucy felt the amazing texture of fur mixed with smooth scales. Blue's eyes closed in what looked like contentment. They spent the next hour together by the stream. Blue showed Lucy which berries were good to eat and which flowers had the sweetest nectar. In return, Lucy shared stories about Earth and her parents, even though she knew Blue couldn't understand the words. But somehow she felt that Blue understood the sadness in her voice and was trying to help. The sound of heavy footsteps crashing through the forest broke their peaceful moment. Blue jumped to its feet, alert and ready to run. Lucy looked around and saw several members of the security team approaching, led by Paul Grant. "Lucy," Paul called out, "we've been looking everywhere for you. You can't wander off like this." But Paul's voice died in his throat when he saw Blue. The security chief reached for his weapon, but Lucy quickly stepped between him and the creature. "Don't hurt Blue," she said firmly. "Blue is my friend." "Lucy, get away from that thing," Paul said, keeping his weapon lowered but ready. "We don't know if it's dangerous." "Blue isn't dangerous," Lucy replied. "Blue has been helping me find food and showing me which plants are safe." Dr. Ross appeared behind Paul, followed by Captain Morrison and several other colonists. They all stopped when they saw the alien creature sitting calmly beside the human girl. "Amazing," Dr. Park whispered. "Look at its behavior. It's not afraid of us, but it's not aggressive either. It's curious." Blue looked at all the new humans but didn't run away. Instead, it moved closer to Lucy as if protecting her from potential threats. The creature's body language suggested intelligence and careful evaluation of the situation. "We should capture it," suggested Kevin Hayes. "Think of what we could learn from studying an alien life form." Blue's ears flattened against its head, and it made a low growling sound. Somehow it understood the threatening tone in Kevin's voice. "No," Lucy said quickly. "Blue is not a thing to be studied. Blue is a person, just like us." Before anyone could respond, the forest around them exploded with movement. Massive shapes emerged from behind the trees, and suddenly the humans found themselves surrounded by a pack of creatures just like Blue, but much larger. The adult versions were enormous, each one weighing at least 300 pounds. Their scales glittered like armor, and their blue eyes held an intelligence that was both alien and unmistakably aware. There were 8 of them, moving in a coordinated pattern that spoke of pack tactics and group thinking. Paul raised his weapon, but Captain Morrison grabbed his arm. "Wait," the captain said quietly. "Look at their behavior." The pack leader, a magnificent creature with scars on its snout and silver streaks in its dark fur, approached the group slowly. It ignored the humans entirely and focused its attention on Blue and Lucy. The young creature made soft chirping sounds, as if explaining the situation to its elder. The pack leader studied Lucy for a long moment, then did something that made every human present hold their breath. It lay down on the ground in front of her, lowering its massive head in what could only be interpreted as a gesture of respect. One by one, the other pack members followed their leader's example, until 8 enormous predators were lying peacefully around one small human girl. Lucy looked at the amazed faces of her fellow colonists, then back at Blue and the pack. "I think," she said quietly, "we're going to be friends." Over the next week, everything changed for the colonists of the new frontier. The creatures Lucy had befriended became regular visitors to their camp. The colonists learned to call them scale wolves because of their unique combination of reptilian scales and mammalian fur. Blue stayed close to Lucy almost constantly. The young scale wolf seemed to understand that she had lost her parents and needed companionship. It would curl up next to her at night, providing warmth and comfort that helped her sleep without nightmares. The adult scale wolves kept their distance from most humans, but showed no aggression. They would arrive each morning carrying strange fruits and freshly killed meat from local animals. The pack leader, whom Lucy named Silver because of the streaks in its fur, would deposit these offerings near the camp and then retreat to watch from the tree line. Dr. Park spent hours observing the pack's behavior through binoculars. "Their social structure is incredibly complex," she told Captain Morrison. "They're not just intelligent animals. They're showing signs of culture, language, and even what appears to be moral reasoning." The evidence was hard to ignore. When young Joey Martinez accidentally cut his hand on a piece of sharp metal, Blue immediately ran to the forest and returned with leaves that, when crushed, stopped the bleeding and prevented infection. The scale wolves somehow knew about medicine. Tony Clark, a former Marine who had been traveling to the colony to start a new life, remained suspicious of the creatures. "They're predators," he warned the other colonists. "Just because they're being friendly now doesn't mean they won't turn on us when we're weak." But the scale wolves continued to prove him wrong. When a storm hit their camp on the 8th day, the pack worked together to help the humans. They used their powerful bodies to hold down tarps and their natural ability to see in the dark, to guide colonists to safety. No human was hurt, and several scale wolves got injured protecting people they barely knew. Lucy found herself changing too. She was no longer the quiet, sad girl who had lost her parents in the crash. Being around Blue and the pack gave her a sense of purpose she had never felt before. She began to understand their body language and sounds almost as if she was learning a new language. "Lucy has a gift," Dr. Ross observed to Captain Morrison. "I've never seen anything like it. She can communicate with them on a level that seems almost telepathic." The breakthrough came on the 10th day. Kevin Hayes had been growing more frustrated with their situation. The merchant saw the scale wolves as valuable resources that could be exploited, rather than friends to be respected. He convinced 3 other colonists to help him capture one of the younger pack members for study. They set a trap near the stream using food as bait. But the scale wolves were too smart for such simple tricks. When the net fell, it caught nothing but air. The pack had known about the trap all along. Within minutes, 8 angry scale wolves surrounded Kevin and his group. These weren't the calm, friendly creatures that brought food to the camp. These were apex predators whose pack member had been threatened. Their scales stood on end, making them look even larger than they were. Their lips pulled back to show teeth that could tear through metal. Silver stepped forward, and the sound that came from its throat was like nothing any human had heard before. It was a roar that seemed to shake the ground itself, full of rage and disappointment. Kevin raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Lucy appeared between him and Silver. The 12-year-old girl stood barely 3 feet tall, but she faced down a 300-pound predator without fear. "Stop," she said. Not to Kevin, but to Silver. The pack leader's roar died in its throat. Its blue eyes, so similar to Blue's, fixed on Lucy's face. Lucy turned to Kevin, and her voice carried an authority that surprised everyone, including herself. "Put down your weapon. You've broken their trust." "Lucy, get out of the way," Kevin said desperately. "These things are going to kill us." "No," Lucy replied firmly. "They're not things. They're people, and they were only bringing us food and helping us survive. But you tried to hurt one of their children." Silver made a sound that was almost like a whimper. Lucy turned back to the massive creature and placed her small hand on its snout. "I'm sorry," she said. "Some humans make bad choices when they're scared, but not all of us are like that." The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. The other scale wolves watched their leader, waiting to see what would happen. The colonists held their breath, knowing that their survival might depend on what Lucy said next. "We want to be friends," Lucy continued, looking directly into Silver's eyes. "We want to share this world with you, not take it from you. But you have to trust us, and we have to trust you." Silver studied Lucy's face for a long moment. Then slowly the pack leader lowered its head and made a soft rumbling sound. One by one, the other scale wolves relaxed their aggressive postures, but the damage had been done. Kevin's attempt to capture a pack member had shown the scale wolves that not all humans could be trusted. From that day forward, the pack was more cautious. They still brought food and helped when they could, but they no longer approached the camp as freely as they had before. Blue was the exception. The young scale wolf refused to let fear control its friendship with Lucy. If anything, the incident seemed to strengthen their bond. Blue began sleeping inside Lucy's shelter at night, and during the day they explored the forest together. Through Blue, Lucy began to understand how the scale wolves saw the world. They didn't just observe their environment. They felt it. They could sense the emotions of other creatures, including humans. This explained why they had known about Kevin's trap and why they responded so well to Lucy's genuine friendship. "They're empathic," Lucy explained to Dr. Park. "They can feel what we feel. That's why they knew Kevin was planning to hurt them, and that's why they trust me. They know I don't want to hurt anyone." Dr. Park was fascinated by this revelation. If that's true, it would explain so much about their behavior. They're not just intelligent. They're emotionally intelligent in ways that might surpass human capabilities. As the days passed, Lucy found that she could sense the scale wolves' emotions too. When Blue was happy, she felt lighter. When Silver was worried about something in the forest, she felt anxious. The connection was growing stronger, creating a bridge between two species that had never imagined such a thing was possible. Captain Morrison watched these developments with growing amazement. His crew had crashed on an alien world and expected to struggle alone for survival. Instead, they had found partners who were willing to share their knowledge and resources. It was unlike anything in human history, but Morrison was also a practical man. He knew that 37 humans couldn't survive indefinitely on good intentions and alien generosity. They needed to become self-sufficient, and they needed to prepare for the possibility that not all of this world's creatures were as friendly as the scale wolves. His concerns proved justified sooner than he expected. On their 15th day on the alien world, the forest suddenly went quiet. The scale wolves became agitated, pacing back and forth at the edge of the camp. Silver approached Lucy and made urgent sounds as if trying to warn her about something terrible approaching. Something was coming through the forest, something that even the scale wolves feared. The attack came at dawn on the 16th day. Lucy woke to the sound of Silver's warning roar echoing through the forest. Blue was already on its feet, scales standing upright with fear and aggression. Every scale wolf in the area was making the same desperate sound like air raid sirens in the wilderness. Everyone up. Now? Captain Morrison shouted as he grabbed his weapon. The colonists scrambled from their shelters, confused and terrified by the panic of their alien allies. From the depths of the jungle came an answering call, but this sound was nothing like the scale wolves' roars. It was a hiss that seemed to go on forever, like steam escaping from a massive engine. The sound made everyone's skin crawl and their hearts race. "What is that?" Amy Foster asked, her pilot's training keeping her voice steady despite her fear. Dr. Park had been studying the forest ecosystem for 2 weeks, but she had never heard anything like this. "I don't know, but look at the scale wolves. They're terrified." Silver approached Lucy quickly, making urgent sounds and gestures toward the crashed ship. The message was clear: get to safety now. Lucy understood, but she also knew that the ship wouldn't protect everyone. "Blue says we need to work together," she told the adults. "These things, whatever they are what the scale wolves have been protecting us from." The first death crawler emerged from the tree line like something from humanity's worst nightmares. It was 30 feet long and moved on dozens of small legs that carried its serpentine body with horrible grace. Its hide looked like black metal armor, and acid dripped from its mouth, burning the ground where it fell. Worst of all were its eyes, cold, calculating, and completely without mercy. "Open fire," Paul Grant commanded, but the bullets bounced off the creature's armored hide like raindrops. The death crawler turned toward the sound of gunfire and hissed again, revealing rows of teeth that could shred steel. 2 more death crawlers appeared, then 4, then 6. They moved with intelligence and coordination, spreading out to surround the human camp. These weren't just predators hunting for food. They were conducting a military operation. The scale wolves charged without hesitation. Silver led the pack in a desperate assault against creatures twice their size and 3 times as heavily armored. Their claws scraped against the death crawler's hide, looking for weak spots, while their powerful jaws tried to find purchase on the serpentine necks. "The mining equipment," Carlos Martinez shouted suddenly. "Rachel, help me get the plasma cutters online. If bullets won't work, maybe industrial tools will." Rachel White, one of the mining engineers, ran toward the salvaged equipment. "The power cells are almost dead, but we might get a few shots out of the cutters." Lucy watched the battle in horror. Blue was fighting alongside the adult scale wolves, but the young creature was badly outmatched. One of the death crawlers had Blue cornered against a fallen tree, its acid-dripping mouth moving closer to the small scale wolf with each passing second. Without thinking, Lucy grabbed a piece of broken metal pipe and ran toward the fight. "Get away from Blue," she screamed, swinging the makeshift weapon at the death crawler's head. The pipe clanged harmlessly off the creature's armor, but Lucy's action distracted it long enough for Silver to arrive. The pack leader hit the death crawler like a battering ram, knocking it away from Blue and Lucy. The 2 creatures rolled across the ground, claws and teeth seeking vital spots. "Lucy, get back here," Dr. Ross called out, but Lucy was beyond hearing. She could feel Blue's pain and fear as if they were her own emotions. Something was happening to her, something she didn't understand but couldn't resist. The battle raged for what felt like hours. The colonists used everything they had: modified mining tools, improvised weapons, and desperate courage. Tony Clark fought with military precision, coordinating the human defense with calm professionalism. Amy Foster used her pilot's knowledge of machinery to keep their improvised weapons functioning, but they were losing. 3 colonists had been killed, and 2 scale wolves were badly injured. The death crawlers seemed endless, with more arriving from the forest even as others fell to combined human and scale wolf attacks. That was when Lucy felt the change. It started as a warm feeling in her chest, like drinking hot chocolate on a cold day, but it grew stronger, spreading through her arms and legs, connecting her to Blue and through Blue to every scale wolf in the pack. She could feel their thoughts, their strategies, their desperate love for their packmates and their new human friends. Together, Lucy whispered, and somehow every creature fighting for their lives heard her. The tide of battle shifted in an instant. The scale wolves began fighting with perfect coordination, as if they shared a single mind. They communicated instantaneously, setting up complex attacks and covering each other's weaknesses. The humans found themselves moving in harmony with their alien allies, anticipating each other's actions without speaking. Carlos and Rachel got the plasma cutters working, just as Lucy guided Silver and 2 other scale wolves into position. The combined attack cut through a deathcrawler's armor like it was paper. Acid blood sprayed everywhere, but the colonists had learned to stay clear of the dangerous fluid. Joey Martinez, despite being only 10 years old, proved invaluable as a messenger, carrying information between the human and scale wolf fighters. His small size let him move quickly through the chaos of battle. One by one, the deathcrawlers fell, but the victory came at a terrible cost. When the last creature finally stopped moving, 5 colonists lay dead, including Kevin Hayes, who had redeemed himself by sacrificing his life to save others. 3 scale wolves had also died, including an elder that Silver mourned with heartbreaking howls. Lucy collapsed from exhaustion, the strange connection that had linked everyone during the battle fading like a dying flame. Blue limped over to her side, wounded but alive. Together, they looked at the aftermath of the fight that had changed everything. Dr. Park knelt beside Lucy, checking her for injuries. "What happened to you during the battle? You were different, like you were connected to all of them." Lucy looked at the surviving humans and scale wolves, who were tending to each other's wounds without regard for species. Human colonists used their medical supplies on injured scale wolves while the pack shared their healing plants with wounded humans. "I think," Lucy said slowly, "I became a bridge between us and them, and maybe that's what we needed all along." As the purple sun set on their 16th day on the alien world, humans and scale wolves worked together to bury their dead. They dug graves side by side, mixing earth customs with scale wolf rituals that Lucy somehow understood without being taught. Captain Morrison stood at Lucy's side as they watched the combined funeral ceremony. "What you did today, Lucy, I've never seen anything like it. You didn't just save our lives, you created something new." Lucy nodded, feeling older than her 12 years. "Blue's family and our family aren't separate anymore, Captain. We're one family now, and families protect each other." Silver approached them, moving slowly because of its injuries. The pack leader looked at Lucy with eyes full of gratitude and respect, then did something that made every surviving human gasp in wonder. It touched its forehead to Lucy's in a gesture of equality and partnership that transcended species barriers. The bond between humans and scale wolves was no longer just friendship. It was something deeper, stronger, and more permanent than anyone had imagined possible. 2 years had passed since the crash of the New Frontier, and the settlement that had grown around the wreckage bore no resemblance to the desperate camp they had established in those first terrifying days. What had once been a crash site was now a thriving community, where humans and scale wolves lived and worked together as equals. Lucy Bennett, now 14, stood on the observation platform they had built in the canopy of the great silver trees. From here she could see the entire settlement spread out below her. Human-built structures of salvaged metal and local stone stood alongside scale wolf dens carved into the living trees. Gardens tended by both species provided food that neither could have grown alone. Blue, now fully grown and magnificent, sat beside her as always. The scale wolf had never left Lucy's side for more than a few hours, and their bond had only grown stronger over time. Through their connection, Lucy had learned to communicate with the entire pack, and through the pack, with other scale wolf communities across the continent. The supply ship will be here in 3 days, Amy Foster called up from below. Amy had become their chief engineer after Carlos had been killed in a deathcrawler attack 8 months ago. Her skills with both human and scalewolf technology had been essential to their survival. Lucy climbed down from the platform, Blue moving gracefully beside her on all 6 legs. The news of the supply ship should have been exciting, but Lucy felt conflicted about it. When the rescue signal had finally been sent and answered, many of the colonists had assumed they would all go home to Earth, but home was a complicated concept now. In the central meeting area, Captain Morrison was addressing a gathering of both humans and scale wolves. Silver, now showing gray in its fur but still strong, lay in the place of honor beside the captain. Other pack leaders from nearby communities had come to hear about the arrival of the first official human vessel since their crash. The ship that's coming is called the Harmony, Morrison explained. It's bringing supplies, medicine, and news from Earth. But more importantly, it's bringing observers from the Colonial Authority. They want to understand what we've built here. Dr. Lisa Park, whose studies of scale wolf behavior had become the foundation of their partnership, stood to address the crowd. What we've created here is unprecedented in human history. We've established not just peaceful contact with an intelligent alien species, but a genuine partnership. Our 2 peoples have become stronger together than either could have been alone. Lucy listened to the formal words, but her attention was really on the mixed crowd around her. Joey Martinez, now 12, sat next to a young scale wolf he had befriended during a trading expedition to the northern forests. Dr. Ross was treating a scale wolf's injured paw while its packmate held a human child who had scraped her knee. These everyday interactions, not the formal ceremonies, showed what they had really accomplished. The question we face now, Captain Morrison continued, is what happens when Earth wants to establish official relations with this world. Some of you may choose to return to human space. Others may decide to stay and continue building what we've started here. Tony Clark raised his hand. The former Marine had become their chief of security, working closely with Silver to coordinate defense against the various dangers of their new world. What about the scale wolves? Do they get a choice in what happens to their planet? Silver rose and made a series of complex sounds that Lucy translated for the human colonists. Silver says that the scale wolves have been discussing this among themselves. They've never had contact with other worlds before, but they understand that humans come from the stars. They want to learn more about human civilization, but they also want to make sure their own culture is protected. An elderly scale wolf named Whisper, whose fur had turned completely silver with age, approached Lucy. Through their empathic connection, Lucy felt the creature's concern and wisdom. She turned to address the gathered crowd. Whisper says that the scale wolves remember stories from their ancestors about the time before humans came. They were a divided people then, with different packs fighting each other for territory and resources. But working with us has taught them new ways of thinking. They've learned to solve problems through cooperation instead of conflict. Blue made a soft sound that Lucy understood immediately. Blue says that human children and scale wolf cubs are already learning from each other. The next generation won't see any difference between the 2 species. We'll all just be people of this world. The meeting continued for hours with both species discussing the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. When the formal session ended, Lucy found herself approached by many of the human colonists who were struggling with their decision to stay or go. "What about you, Lucy?" asked Rachel White. "You could go back to Earth, get a real education, have a normal life." Lucy looked around at the settlement they had built together. Children of both species played in the common areas, while their parents worked on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. The scale wolves had taught them how to grow food in the alien soil, while humans had introduced concepts of engineering and medicine that had dramatically improved life for the pack. "This is my normal life," Lucy replied. "I can't imagine living anywhere else or with anyone else." She gestured to Blue and the other scale wolves nearby. "They're my family now." When the Harmony finally arrived, it brought more than just supplies and observers. It brought news that their story had spread throughout human space. Lucy Bennett, the girl who had sat beside a predator cub and waited for the whole pack to follow, had become famous across the galaxy. Scientists, diplomats, and philosophers all wanted to understand how she had achieved something that had seemed impossible. But Lucy had little interest in fame. She was more concerned with the immediate problems of her community. The colonial authority wanted to establish a formal research station, which could bring jobs and resources but might also disrupt the delicate balance they had achieved. Dr. Sandra Kim, the lead observer from Earth, spent days interviewing colonists and studying their interaction with the scale wolves. She was particularly interested in Lucy's unique abilities. "You've accomplished something remarkable here," Dr. Kim told Lucy during one of their sessions. "But I have to ask, do you think what you've done could be replicated elsewhere? Could other humans learn to form these kinds of bonds with alien species?" Lucy considered the question carefully. "I think any human could learn to be friends with the scale wolves if they were willing to be honest about their emotions. The scale wolves can sense feelings, so you can't lie to them or pretend to be something you're not. But most humans spend so much time hiding their real feelings that they've forgotten how to be genuine." 3 months after the arrival of the Harmony, the colonial authority made its decision. The planet would be declared a joint human scale wolf world, the first of its kind in known space. A small research station would be established, but the settlement's unique culture would be protected by law. More importantly, Lucy was appointed as the first human scale wolf ambassador, a position created specifically to recognize her unique role in bridging the two species. She would split her time between the settlement and traveling to Earth to help establish protocols for future contact with alien species. On the night before her first diplomatic mission to Earth, Lucy sat with Blue on their favorite platform high in the silver trees. The settlement glowed softly below them, a living symbol of cooperation and mutual respect. "Are you ready for this?" Blue asked in the complex mixture of sounds and emotions that had become their private language. Lucy smiled and scratched behind Blue's ears, feeling the familiar texture of scales and fur. "As ready as anyone can be to change the galaxy, I guess." Blue made a sound that was unmistakably laughter. "Just remember what you taught me when we first met. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is extend your hand to someone who might be afraid of you." Lucy looked up at the unfamiliar stars of their alien sky. Somewhere up there, Earth was waiting to learn from what they had accomplished on this distant world. The lessons were simple enough that a 12-year-old girl had understood them instinctively. Approach with honesty, offer friendship without demanding it in return, and never assume that being different means being enemy. But simple lessons, Lucy had learned, were often the hardest ones to teach. As the purple sun rose on another day in their shared world, Lucy Bennett prepared to carry the story of the predator cub and the human girl to the stars themselves. The whole pack had followed, just as she had always believed they would.